Yes.
Eisenberg.
Here.
Lawson. Maury.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Wall. Weaver.
Here.
Quorum is present at 7 o'clock.
Move to adopt the agenda as presented. Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Carries. Today, we have a special recognition that we would like to enjoy.
Hello again. Back for the second time. Last spring, the last school year, Mr. Lampy, you have to stand up now because I talk about it. Mr. Lampy was nominated by people who have worked with him in the alternative ed setting for several years, and some for a few years. And so he was awarded the Iowa Alternative Ed Teacher of the Year Award through the state organization, and this would have been presented to him in Altoona at their convention, but because of certain events, it didn't happen. But I'd like to read, that's a lot of pressure. Don't worry about it. Thank you very much. We get him in the same location as Teacher of the Year.
Obviously, you've done that before.
I'd like to read some of the comments that were made in letters of recommendation. Just take a minute of your time and then present the award, if that's okay. Pat not only wants his students to graduate, he also wants them to succeed in a career that they will find enjoyable. Therefore, Pat teaches career exploration and readiness. Pat goes above and beyond the normal duties of a teacher. He generally wants his students to achieve and succeed, and he works to meet their needs. Also, Mr. Lampy fills many shoes for us at Compass. He is a business teacher, a math teacher, a PE teacher, and on Fridays he works with the counselors on the careers. Many of the things he is involved in are not things he does because we ask him to. He does them because he sees how those things will benefit their students. As an alternative education teacher, I believe you have to possess the desire to go above and beyond in order to give your students the best chance of success in education and future. One example that Mr. Lampy has shown this was when he helped a student on the last day of class before graduation finish his math with a passing grade. The student did not have a stellar attendance and struggled to make up what he had missed. And Mr. Lampy ordered sandwiches and stayed until 5 p.m. to help him pass. So those are just some of the comments about his service to Linn-Mar as an alternative education teacher. So with that, I'd like to present the massive Iowa Alternative Education Award. I'm going to do a list for that. All right, Mr. Lampy, off the board.
Thank you. It's not the size that matters. I just want to say that, even though it has my name on it, it should be an award for the entire Compass team. I don't think we could do it without each other, and I think it starts from the top with Steve coming over. I think that was the biggest, meant so much to the school, just setting expectations high, holding kids accountable, and I think the kids really grew from it, and I think they really appreciated having those expectations that they may not get anywhere else. So huge difference, and Sue coming over has changed just the whole, I think the whole feel, the whole culture with science. I think kids enjoy going to the science classes now, so I think she's just made a huge difference. And I just want to say, when I was looking at the banners that we hang in our hallway with all our students that have graduated, and all the names I read through, and I just applause, and thank you, Courtney, for the nomination, and thank you, team, for all we do.
Thank you.
Kevin, did you get good pictures for us?
You gotta get a picture now.
Okay.
Kevin heard or not, did you get good pictures for us, Kevin?
Yes.
I think we need to get one more.
He's obviously
He's
got
running
two things
around.
going
It's
on.
like, come here, come here. Maybe you got some, if not, go take one when he takes one.
All right, thank you.
You
Thank
bet,
you.
thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Thanks, Pat.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so we'll move on to audience communication, and due to COVID, social distancing guidelines, and limited space available at the LRC, all audience communications are submitted to JT by noon today. And we do have 6, I believe, that he will read for us.
This first communication comes from John Gardner. It says, "Hello, my name is John Gardner, and I am the significant other of a wonderful teacher in the district. I am writing to you today to implore you to move learning to full-time remote. The current system, despite best efforts, is not working, not for teachers and not for students. As a county, we approach 20% COVID positivity rates, and on any given day, as many as 11 teachers in a single school are absent due to testing positive or close exposure. Due to a nationwide lack of substitute teachers, the teachers who are left are forced to run double duty, covering multiple classrooms in an attempt to provide supervision to every child. This experiment of hybrid learning, while an admirable attempt, has failed. Additionally, students come into school every other day, and that daily change in learning environment is not an easy transition for students to make. It is time to move all learning to remote to give both the children and teachers a consistent, steady environment in which to learn. Teachers are one of the most underappreciated and overworked professions out there. They care about our kids and want them to succeed. Please put them in a position where they can solely focus on their students and not having to juggle multiple classrooms while worrying about COVID exposure for themselves and their children. Please have the humility to recognize that while the attempt at hybrid learning was admirable, it is no longer sustainable. It is time to move to full-time remote learning. Thank you for your time, John Gardner." Second communication comes from Jill Eltz. It says, "The metrics for our area are very high, showing great public spread. Third highest county in state last I checked. Hospitalizations are breaking records almost every day. The school should go online, or at least at the very least hybrid for elementary students. Staff and students are being quarantined at a greater rate. We need to be part of the solution to community spread as a district. Jill Eltz." Next is from Jennifer Digman, and it reads, "Our 3 children have been in the Family Choice online model for the first quarter. Last month, we selected to return to in-person learning for the second quarter at Indian Creek, Boulder Peak, and Excelsior. Our decision was based on the reported data at that time. Since then, the COVID infection rate and community spread has increased significantly. Is there an opportunity for families to rescind their in-person request for the second quarter and remain online? Thank you, Jen Digman." Next communication is from Tiffany DeBell. It says, "I just want to state as a Linn-Mar parent that the school needs to go virtual at least a couple weeks into January. It is going to be difficult for parents, yes, but our positivity rates are so high already. We know that Iowans will not do the right thing, as our governor keeps insisting. If they would, we wouldn't be facing some of the highest numbers in our country, despite being one of the lesser populated states. People are going to have large family and friend gatherings indoors for the holidays. People are going to spread this disease. Though the schools, especially at the elementary levels, have had some success keeping infections lowered, I feel this is going to be a tidal wave that the schools can't control. Keeping students home during this time not only helps keep the students safe, it is one of the best ways to combat community spread. I urge the school board to do what our governor won't and to do what they can to help mitigate the spread of this disease. With notice, businesses can make adjustments and parents can make plans to make sure that kids are cared for and learning, and that parents are still able to earn their living. We can do this, but it will not be easy. The easy way out is costing numerous lives. Time for Iowans to be the hard workers we know they are and make this work. A couple weeks into January, and hopefully anyone who was exposed to it at Christmas will be outside the incubation period. Thank you, Tiffany DeBow, mother of an Indian Creek student. Next, we have communication from Roy Sheen Delaney, and it reads, I'd like to address my concerns at communication from the district. We were advised there is a new text system rolling out. Numerous people did not receive the notifications. This was a common response from parents of virtual students. When queried, we were told to update PowerSchool. In my instance, there was no change to the PowerSchool data, and yet I still have not received the text. I have been in contact with LM Tech to see if they can verify that the system is sending to all users. So far, I have not gotten a response to show that it is a system issue or a cellular provider issue, and no resolution to not receiving the text. This greatly concerns me as a parent. Linn-Mar has been providing some updates via social media. As a limited social media user, I am unaware of these updates. Would this be something that is provided by the text system, or is there a plan to email parents to ensure outreach to everyone? I want to make the best decision I can based on information provided from Linn-Mar. If I'm not receiving the information, I am unable to do so. I am also very concerned regarding the rising COVID numbers within our area. The dashboard showed a guideline of switching to hybrid for all once we reach 13%. Given that we've passed that over a week before this board meeting, I'm eagerly awaiting the response today. As a parent who has opted for virtual, this information, reaction, and implementation is key to our decisions for returning to in-person learning. Roy Sheen Delaney. Lastly, from Vanessa Reno, it says, our family has been watching the rising COVID positivity rate and the rising hospitalizations. If ever there was a time for our children to transition to virtual learning, it is now. Currently, there are far too many cases of COVID and other viruses beginning to circulate to ensure proper, consistent learning for students, especially the K-6 students that have missed multiple days of instruction while waiting at home for COVID tests to come back because they display symptoms but haven't been able to utilize virtual instruction. Our healthcare professionals are tired and overwhelmed. We have a responsibility to our community to step up and do the right thing before the spread is much worse. Please consider not only the LM students and staff's health and safety, but the entire community when making a decision to go virtual. We believe the time is now. Our family recognizes in-person school is the best option for optimal learning, yet we are prepared to make sacrifices again for the well-being of others. Thank you for your consideration. Vanessa Reno, mom of 3 LM students in 12th, 8th, and 4th grades.
All right, thank you. We move on to our informational reports and discussions. First, we had a board visit to Hazel Point. Almost all of us were able to make it. I'll just state that it was an incredible experience. The building is beautiful, wonderful. The staff are very gracious and enjoying, I think, their new space and what they've done with the kids. I think with all this COVID, it's wonderful. So thank you for all you're doing. Who else would like to speak?
It was a very good session. I just look forward to the day that we can kind of showcase the two facilities and let some of the parents and people come in and see it. But it was very good, very good.
Okay, Clark?
I was extremely impressed with how things run. Being there before the kids were and then being there when the students were there, and just their movement from classroom to classroom, excuse me. But also we had an opportunity to kind of see how the virtual learning was taking place and how they actually come in contact with the students by using what Jerry and the IT department got those big screens, and how everybody liked it. The nice thing is that the microphones, several of the teachers commented to me how important it was to have those, because at the beginning they didn't, and they were hoarse at the end of the first day, but the microphones just made a huge improvement on how they were able to go through their classrooms. So That was important, and I really liked enjoying seeing where the virtual classrooms were and how those teachers are really close to the in-classroom teachers of the same grade, and that if there's a question, they can just walk across the hall and collaborate. And I think that kind of communication is essential. And to have that, and now that I know that it's happening in both buildings, I think that is not only an asset to the students, but it's an asset to the teachers, because there's somebody always there that they can bounce ideas off of and tweak what's going on. And when you can see those big screens, like I said before, we got to see one in art being done, we got to see one in music, and just how they can do everything and how the kids really enjoy it. So it was very impressive, and to see that the gym floor is back working, and you know, in both spots, you know, that gives an avenue of taking kids from the hallway back into a facility where the physical education teachers can work with them. And so that was really good to see.
Thank you. Britt?
I was really impressed by, the buildings really showcase the future of education and what's possible. The integration of technology and the way that it's seamlessly integrated into the curriculum is something I think that we can look at, and we should really strive to replicate across our other buildings, and to see how successful it's working there and where else can we utilize that in the district. I know it's always easy when it's a brand new building, but it shows us what's possible, and I was really impressed by that.
Tim?
I thought it was great, because we had talked about, you know, how we're going to do coordination, collaboration for years, and we went and viewed all these other buildings, and being able to see it, and I really look forward to the day that we can do that. I mean, they're doing to the best they can, but with restrictions and understandable. But I just thought it was great to see with kids the things that we've been talking about, and that, like Britt said, maybe we can adapt to other schools as well. So.
Okay. I wanted to read a statement from Carol, who wasn't able to be here tonight. She just said that the Hazel Point experience, Hazel Point is incredible. It's great to see the building in use. The excitement and enthusiasm is evidence from the moment you walk in, and she just says thanks to everyone there. So I think we all were impressed and are ready to have everybody else at some point in time see the building too. So next we have the School Improvement Advisory Committee. I know, Britt, you were part of that. Is there anything you'd like to share?
Well, you all saw the data. I got to hear it twice, which was actually good, because you hear it the first time and then you get to digest it over the weekend, and I got to hear it again. What I'll say, since you've already seen the data, is that for me in the committee meeting, it was really great to hear from the other committee members and their classroom experiences, and being able to talk about how they're interpreting the data and how they're applying things this year, and how they've taken things in different buildings and applied it. The wellness check-in, for example, different buildings and different teachers talked about how they adjusted it and adapted to make it work for their grade level, their students, to make it easier on their parents. So I liked hearing the stories behind the data. Like, the numbers are good, we need to see them, but it was great to hear their interpretations of it and to hear how it's working. The other note I wrote down that I really liked was there was a middle school representative that talked about how impactful the RTI has been at the middle school level. That they're having 20 to 30 minutes of uninterrupted time to focus with their at-risk students, and it's making a world of difference. So I think that, you know, we talk about pulling the good out of all the chaos, and I think that that RTI at the middle school level is showing that that's something that maybe we want to keep in the future. So, so yeah, I won't go over all the data again because you've already heard it. So it was just really nice to hear the group talk about it and their experiences.
Thank you. On to Marion City Council is the next thing on the agenda, and Carol was supposed to report, so I looked into it for her today, and at 12:30 today, the minutes still were not posted from the last time. So we can take a look at those, and if there's anything to report, we can do that next time. So moving on to the cabinet update.
Not a ton of things to share. We'll have some other bigger topics, upcoming agenda items here in a little bit. But just a couple things I'll highlight. We're quickly approaching the end of the first quarter. Second quarter begins on Monday, and the first quarter is this Thursday with Teachers Collaboration Day, Work Day on Friday. And that's significant for us, I think, especially this year with everything that's happened, from a delayed start to the school year with derecho. COVID impact obviously impacts every single thing we're doing. So I just think the acknowledgement of all of our staff members for making this work this year and for being resilient and figuring things out and trying things that don't work and then figuring out what does work better. Obviously, that's part of the learning process for everybody in this world, but I think teachers especially have really learned a lot and grown and continue to do better and better. So I just want to make sure to acknowledge that. I mean, that goes beyond our teachers as well, from administrators, bus drivers, kitchen staff, custodians, secretaries, you name it. This is a whole different job for everybody this year. So to get to this point of the year that we're almost at the end of the first quarter, normally that's just a routine part of the calendar, but I think this year that's significant for us. So I want to thank everybody for getting to that point as well. And then along with that, our family members and students. I think one thing you guys heard at Hazel Point and every place we've been in buildings, our students have been fantastic in this first quarter. They want to be in school, they want to be learning, they're being patient with things as we work through it as well. So it's truly one of those cases where it takes everybody to make this happen, and very appreciative of that. So I don't want to let that just slide by. So I will kind of call out a couple of schools as well. Hazel Point, we just talked about the visit there, and then Boulder Peak, the two new intermediate schools, especially for their work, because it's hard to build culture in a new building when you're bringing teachers from 9, 11 buildings, wherever they all came from, all over the district, and then kids from all over the district. And then you can't do it in a normal way with some of the meet and greets and open houses and opportunities to really work together as a team. Both those buildings have just flourished as the start of the year. You saw it at Hazel Point, you'll see it at Boulder Peak at our next board visit in December. So just a special acknowledgement that it's hard to open a new school in a positive way in a normal year, and this is anything but normal. So appreciation of their extra efforts too. And then looking ahead to the second quarter, some adjustments in some schedules as we talked about last time, as we learn about RTI and best ways to do that in the hybrid models. And then opportunities for families to adjust to their schedules as well. So we have some families choosing to go from on-site to online, some that are choosing from online to on-site. Those numbers continue to evolve a little bit as well. And try to be back to the initial things we talked about this summer. We wanted our return to learn plan to be flexible. We wanted it to involve choice, and we wanted it to provide safe environment for our students and staff. And I think our plan has done that, and we'll continue to develop that as we go through this year as well. It's not a finished product by any means. So just so you're aware, I think I told you last time, we had about 207 families requesting to go from K-6 online to on-site. That number has dipped about 180 as our COVID circumstances have changed a little bit, so we've adjusted with that as much as we can as well. And then our class size impact, obviously that'll be a little more students in our classrooms as you spread that out over 9 buildings, I guess, and the grade levels. It's about 1 to 1.5 students per class when we average it out, maybe a little less than that now with the fewer number of students. But that also lowers our number of kids in our online programs too. So there's the pros and the cons to that transition time period. One thing I will mention is we were worried as we make a transition and changes like that during the middle of the year, you have to potentially adjust some staff members as well. As the numbers have played out, if we haven't gotten lucky on many things this year, it doesn't feel like. We have gotten lucky this time that we do not have to make any staff changes to accommodate those numbers, which I didn't think there was any chance that would happen. But as our numbers played out, balancing out across the board, we're not going to have to do that. So we feel good about that, because that was going to impact other students and other staff members as well. And this is a year of enough changes already happening. So I feel good about that. We'll continue to monitor those numbers. And it gives us some flexibility going forward too. So other than that, just really reiterate back to where I started, just glad to get to this point of the year that we're at as far as almost at the first quarter point, and we know second quarter is going to have its own set of challenges as well, and we'll figure those out as we go. That's going to be our next step and our next challenge too, and we'll talk about some of those steps coming up here in a few minutes. So that's it for me.
Okay. Any questions about that, Shannon? Okay, we go on to our return to learn plan, COVID metric update.
I'll give the board an update on several things. I don't say this flippantly at all, but I feel like every time I give you a number, it changes the instant I hit send on the email or after I hang up the phone with you, because things are just changing so fast with this. And we just have to continue to be responsive to that and stay on top of things as best we can. So here's our latest updates. I'm sure these are out of date now, but they're where we were a couple hours ago at least. Our COVID numbers in Linn County continue to climb. 2 weeks ago, we sat here and had a conversation about, do we bring all of our 7th through 12th graders back into school? Do we stay in a hybrid? I think our numbers were at 8 point something at that time. Now we're sitting here at 21.8 after 2 weeks of change. So that's a significant difference from 2 weeks ago. What do the next 2 weeks bring? I think we can each make our own predictions on that, but that's where we are right now and how fast things have changed. With our metrics we have in place that we agreed upon a couple meetings ago, you know where that looks as far as different options for us to consider. And part of that conversation we've had all the way through though is we are not going to be locked into exact numbers because they do change from time to time quickly, and we need to be not be reactionary. But a couple other data pieces I'll share with you as well. Our current student absentee rate is about 5%. It varies a little bit day to day, but roughly it's 5%. And that is not counting the quarantine students. I mention that because it's part of the criteria to request to go fully online. We have to have at least 15% of the Linn County positivity rate for 14-day average, and we have to have at least 10% of student absentee rate without counting kids in quarantine. Those are the two criteria to meet that application. That doesn't mean we still couldn't apply. We can, but those are the two criteria they've said that we are supposed to meet to be approved.
I thought that at 20%, the absentee factor was waived.
Correct. So that's the other piece of it. Once it gets to be 20%, that does not necessarily have to be there. Now, whether we stay at 20 or not, we'll see as well. So that's a big determination. I think, this is just me speaking, I don't know this, but I do believe the state would be open to an initial application to go online for a 2-week window. If we have other metrics we can share with them to justify that. I don't know that whether their stance would be a second time for an application or a third time. I just don't have a good vibe on that one. I do feel like for initial application with our situation, they would be receptive. Again, I could be wrong on both of those, but that's my feel from conversation with people in the Department of Education right now too, and watching what other schools have heard from responses as well. If we factor in our quarantine rate right now, we're just over 12% absentee rate. So if that is part of the factor, and that changes drastically every day because our quarantine numbers tend to rise and fall more quickly than our absentee rates of non-quarantine as well. So that's an important factor for us to consider too.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
How many of our quarantine students are showing up online?
I do not know the exact number. Brett, I'd hate to even guess because I really,
Okay. No,
I
if
feel
you
like it's a
don't
pretty
know.
good number, but it's hit or miss. I would
That's a
definitely say that.
good question, Britt, because as you were reading through one of those comments, it kind of sounded to me like some of the quarantine students were not online and not getting the education. You know, that was one of my questions too.
But-
So.
Well, and so what I was going to go with that was, if they're in quarantine, but then they don't show up for online, do they get counted as absent?
Technically, no.
Okay,
So-
because see, I think that's an important number for us to know. Even if the state doesn't count it, if they're not showing up, I think we need to know what that's looking like. Because then we have a segment of our students that they're in quarantine, they're not coming online, so they're still missing that education.
Yep. So that's when I had to do a little more digging to find the number on that one.
Okay.
That's a good question. So the other piece is a number of students and staff that have tested positive, and our number of students and staff that are in quarantine has risen the last week or two especially. We continue to see those numbers go up. From last Monday to this Monday, though, it has stabilized. It's been basically the same. Now, those numbers may change because as we enter data in the spreadsheet, sometimes it happens later in the day, but as of 4 o'clock today, it was basically the same last Monday. From Monday to Friday last week, and to the previous week, it had escalated quite a bit. So whether this leveling out today will stay that way or not, it's a very small sample size. We'll have to see. As I've told each of you as well, our biggest challenge right now is staffing, keeping staff in every building, at every position, and at our district office levels, transportation, food service, you name it. That's our biggest challenge right now. That's not one of the metrics that the state is asking information about, but that certainly would be something that we would provide and share that information as well. And that's not unique to us. As I talk to other superintendents across the state, that is everybody's biggest challenge right now, is keeping enough staff healthy and enough staff out of quarantine that they can do their jobs and help us operate and run. And that's, without a doubt, our biggest challenge. And that goes across the board, teachers, ed assistants, secretaries, bus use drivers. That's an ongoing challenge for us, and getting harder, I would say, as well. Clerk?
Along with the staffing challenge, can you kind of update us on the availability of substitutes? Because from what I'm hearing, they're way, way down, and if we're already having staffing challenges, and if there is a lower count on substitute, that puts us in a bigger bind than what we've been used to in the past.
Yeah, it's an easy answer for me on the sub rate. We are way down on substitute coverage for teachers and for our classified staff. Our numbers are not strong in that area, and that's typical in the area throughout the other schools as well. That's along with our staffing numbers we have out, the lack of subs only compounds that issue and makes it that much harder. I don't think any building would disagree with that right now, that is a real challenge. The subs just aren't out there, and those that are very selective in positions and where they want to, if they want to sub right now as well. So that's definitely factored right in with our staffing absences, is the lack of subs that are available. That ends up leading to situations of teachers helping to cover other teachers' classrooms, administrators filling in, counselors filling in, you name it, central office staff coming into buildings to help cover. All those things are happening right now on a very regular basis. That's not a long-term solution that's very successful for us, so that becomes very challenging as well from a emotional, keeping up with everything, time balance, but also a quality situation. If you're bouncing from one class to the other and subbing in areas you're not really an expert in, nobody's going to expect you to be a great chemistry teacher that day if your background is English. So that becomes a challenge for us if we can make sure to cover all those areas as well. So honestly though, every building I hear from, staff has been fantastic about stepping up, filling in those positions, doing everything they can to make that happen. But that comes at a cost, not fiscal cost, but a emotional cost and energy cost as well. So, and that's just becoming more and more challenging to find enough spots to get filled every time. So I don't mean to sound all doom and gloom. That's not the intent of this. It's just the reality of what we deal with on a daily basis across the board. Some buildings are in better spots right now. They're making do pretty well compared to other times. But then that changes really, really fast if something, COVID numbers from a youth group coming to school knocks out a bunch of kids or staff members, and that can really change quickly, we're finding. So, so with all of that, we have some options that I wanted to discuss with the board as well. And this is a reminder for everybody that may be listening tonight too. We have options that we can choose to do, and then we have things that we really are not within our realm, at least not exclusively our realm, but things we have to get approval for, which whether you agree with that or not, that's our reality. We can continue with our current model where we have pre-K 6 every day in person and still offering our online family choice model as well, and then 7-12 hybrid like we've been doing. That would be a continuation what we've been doing. We can look to extend our hybrid to pre-K 12. That would be an option we can consider. If you look at our metrics, that would be an option that would fit within those current numbers for us. Then the final option we would have available, and this one we'd have to get approval for, is to move fully online. I mentioned the two criteria that have to have. One, since we're now over 20%. I don't think any of us thought that was realistic 2 weeks ago, and here we are. So that would be the third option we would have. If we request to go online, the maximum amount of time we can request is 2 weeks. So that doesn't say we can't come back again and 2 weeks later and request an extension again. But again, I don't know what the likelihood of extending that would be. Maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't. I don't know on that piece of it. And then the other factor that I think was important for us to consider as well is the timing of the upcoming holiday season with Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, those times in our calendar as well that we need to be cognizant of and be planful for as far as anticipating what we may or may not see in those times too in the school calendar. So So those are the options that we have available to us right now. And we can talk through some different scenarios as well. As I communicated with you earlier today, we have one building I'm extremely worried about, so our staffing numbers. And it's not getting better. I was hoping this weekend we'd see some signs of positivity there. In fact, it's been the exact opposite. Those numbers have gotten worse. And what we're seeing now is when staff are out right now, they're not out a day or two like we have in the past with flu or cold or tonsillitis or whatever it may be. They're out for 2 weeks essentially. So that makes it doubly challenging to fill positions overall. I mean, that's Excelsior Middle School. So at this time, I think it's prudent to make a request to the Department of Education to ask for a 2-week online virtual learning time for Excelsior Middle School due to the number of staff we have out in that building. Oh, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, so I'm going to go off of memory. I hope these match what I told you earlier today. I think we have 19 staff members currently out due to COVID reasons right now. 15 of those are certified staff members, 4 classified staff members, and we had 3 subs today actually pick up jobs and fill those positions. So that leaves a huge number to fill. We had several more additions today to that absentee list as well, so that just extends the time period there. So a couple other buildings have been on the bubble a little bit too staffing-wise, and they seem like they're currently trending a little better. We'll have to continue to monitor, because like I said, that can change quickly. But that is, without doubt, a building I think we need to take action on and try to get a handle on and try to get that addressed so we can move forward after that 2-week time period in hopefully a more proactive, productive way. My thoughts on that would be we would look to November 11th, which would be this Wednesday, and then 10 school days out from there, which would be the Monday, November 30th, the Monday after Thanksgiving, would be the last day of virtual learning, and then we'd look to come back in person on the Tuesday, December 1st. It's a quick turnaround for us, but those students have already been in kind of a hybrid every other day model anyway, so it would not be a drastic change for family schedules for that piece of it. It also does give us a chance to get through the Thanksgiving holiday time, and then also 1 day at least to kind of do a measure where are we staffing wise going forward after that as well. So I think that's one that in my mind is something we need to look at doing to help make things work short term and long term after that piece as well. So the last thing I will throw out there for discussion as well is the hybrid model extension for K-6 or pre-K-6 to add to that current hybrid model for 7-12. As we've talked, going to hybrid pre-K-6 has some pros and it has some cons without a doubt. But I do feel like with our numbers the way they currently are in Linn County and with our numbers in our buildings as far as staffing wise and student wise, I feel like this is a time for us to be really thoughtful as far as what is the safest model we can provide right now as well. So I think the hybrid model for pre-K-6 is something we need to strongly consider at this time too. We heard several people comment today about going online. That's obviously an option we could have to consider as well, like I mentioned too. But I think we need to look at all of our possible options at this current time as we anticipate where our numbers, if they continue trending the way they have. I think we'd look at every possible option available to us right now. So with that, I will stop gabbing at you, and I'd like to have your thoughts, your ideas as well.
So are you thinking the hybrid for K-6 would begin on next Monday?
Thank
Is that
you.
when
Yes,
you're
I think
thinking?
if we look at the hybrid model for pre-K-6, we would need to give families more time than we would look at with Excelsior. So I think Monday the 16th is a date that would make sense to me. One, that's the start of the second quarter. That gives teachers the Friday work day, collaboration day to plan accordingly. Gives families time to make adjustments in their schedules as well. And I think that would be the logical time to start. I think if we would look at a hybrid model, I think we need to look at it through the holiday season potentially as well. I think that's an important time period for us to look at that factor going forward. Now, we do not have this as a voting item for us tonight. I do have authority to make the changes in our plan as needed, but I certainly want to do that along with the board, not in disagreement by anything either. So your thoughts on this will be really important to have and for us to continue to consider. And let's be honest, I think every board meeting going forward, this will be a topic we're going to have to look at very carefully at one level or the other, or all of the levels as well.
So I know when we talked today, I asked you about what elementary hybrid looks like, or K-6 hybrid, because replicating 712 at that level is not going to work. Like, we can't, elementary teachers cannot teach in person and on a computer at the same time. Speaking as a virtual parent, I am in awe of Arthur's teacher and her ability to maintain engagement with 20 kids online. If she had 10 in person at the same time, I think it would be chaos. So knowing that it would be asynchronous, that the non-in-person day would be other work, and knowing what that other work looks like, again, as a virtual parent, seeing the use of Lexia and Prodigy and the worksheets and the thing. I mean, there's a whole list of when you're not in class, these are the things, and it's clear. Schoology is wonderful. So I think that it's a good setup for that age. And I can speak from watching it happen over the last 7 or 8 weeks, however long it seems longer than that. But so I think that's the right move, and I would agree with that.
Let me elaborate on one thing that Britt mentioned there too, so everybody's on the same page. If we look at an elementary or pre-K 6 hybrid, it looks similar to the soft start we had to start the school year, and that kids would be going to school every other day in person. The difference we'd look at is on the days they are not in school in person, they would have resources, materials for things in Schoology for them to do on those times in an asynchronous format, so the teacher's not having to direct, instruct them at home while they're also teaching their kids in class. That's not to say some teachers wouldn't do that at certain times. It's already happening in a lot of cases where some kids are in quarantine and teachers are doing that at certain times of the day. But that would not be the scheduled time period or expectation all the time either, at least not to start, especially with our younger kids, especially. Sorry, I just wanted to clarify that piece.
No, that's,
Yeah, I think that's really important to note, that it would not be required of the teachers who are on site also be online, Zooming and doing all that too, that when they have the kids with them, whatever set of students that is, they're working with them.
Yeah.
And then maybe what they do whatever they do will go with what they've been teaching when they see them, and that makes sense. It will take more interaction from parents to oversee. The younger they are, the less likely they are to be able to do that on their own, but also it will be proportionate to their age, how much they're assigned. I mean, as a second grade teacher, every 30 minutes you had to change what you did, and that was on a good day when the wind blew right.
Well,
Sometimes it was every 15.
I think it's important to note too, and again, I have unique experience with this, is that they're not going to be online all day like they would in a school day. I mean, they're limited by their age to their screen time allotments, and I think that's an important distinction to make, is that you don't have to supervise an entire day of your child being online.
Yes.
Schoology is a really great, it works.
Okay.
Now that it's set up and it's working and it's good. So I agree with moving to hybrid, if that's the minimum we can do, but I do want to talk for a minute about virtual, because I am listening to our district, I'm listening to parents, and I'm listening to staff, I'm listening to administrators, and I've been writing down common themes of these conversations that I'm having. We're drowning. We love our students, but we're overwhelmed. We are struggling to get through the day. Sorry, I lost my place. We're being pulled in too many different directions. We're trying to do everything well and failing. We're getting half or a third of what we normally get done because we're trying to do and cover everything. Teaching online and teaching in person and teaching online with quarantined students at younger ages hurts everyone because the in-person students are stuck. I think we hear that, and then I look at the data. And just today, the University of Iowa came out and they recommended that as citizens, we have a backup plan to our local hospital because our hospitals are getting full. They're almost at capacity. People can't get tests, even if they're symptomatic. Test sites are booked out a week now. I had a family member's friend needed to get a test, and that was last Wednesday. She couldn't get a test until Saturday because it's full. So even if we see numbers start going down, it might not be because they're going down. It might be because we're not getting as many tests done. We have people refusing to test. We know we don't have enough subs. People are running all over the place. I'm very concerned about our staff and the mental health of our staff. And I feel like if we apply for virtual, is it going to be easy? No. But it's like a reset button. We're going to give them 2 weeks. All their kids are going to be in the same format. They can focus on one situation. Maybe we can calm the numbers down. Maybe we can regroup our staff. I think getting through the holidays in a smaller capacity, an online capacity, is going to help our numbers, and just do what we can to relieve this sense of overwhelming stress and anxiety on our staff, that they're being pulled too thin. And when we look at what we're asking them to do, and it's amazing, what they are accomplishing is amazing, but how long can they do it? And if we continue to ask them to do too much, are we really providing the best educational situation for the students if the staff are so stressed out and so overwhelmed that they're not able to give their best? I think in a virtual platform, yes, we're going to have tech issues, and it's going to be hard on parents. I acknowledge that. But it's going to provide a less stressed, more focused teacher. And I think that might be, at this point in time, what we need to give them. So that's where I'm at. I am happy with the hybrid. I would prefer to try virtual, is where I'm at.
Yeah, something to say?
Well, we have a job. We have a job to get our kids in school. We're going to be challenged no matter what we do. Long discussion with Shannon today about this, because they're watching the data on a daily basis. We're talking about the teachers being stressed. We're talking about everybody's stressed. I don't care what it is in our whole society, we're all stressed. We're really, really challenging our children. We're putting them into a corner. We're talking about the mental health of our children through all of this. We're seeing the grades come down a little bit. Now, Brett, you talked to a number of teachers. I also talked to a number of teachers. Now, I'm getting the other side of this. There are teachers out there that are just absolutely ecstatic to be in school. They're glad the kids are back in school, the excitement of the kids. You know, we joked a little bit earlier about Halloween, how it felt like something normal. I just can't imagine, personally, making a bunch of K through 6th grade kids locked into their homes, virtual learning. Half of those kids are not going to be doing any virtual learning. I might be over-exaggerating one way or the other, but any way you look at it, it's going to be virtually impossible. When we walked out of our last meeting 2 weeks ago, I had 50 people contact me the next morning. And part of that is me. You know, I made a stand. I feel we want the kids in school. It looks like, and I'm going to agree, we made a good decision keeping the 7th through 12 in the virtual side of it, even though I felt we should get them back. Do I want the K through 6th graders to be virtual? 100%? Absolutely not. I struggle with the hybrid piece of it, but I'd be comfortable with that if that's workable. But any way you look at it, there's going to be adjustments and there's going to be challenges. But like I said, I walked into one of my businesses that I do business with, 11 parents cornered me and thanked me for standing my ground because they want their kids back in school, because other school districts in the area are doing the same thing. So, you know, we're going to pull stats together and we don't know what it is. You know, I'm probably more disappointed with our society as a whole today because we're not taking it serious. And that's exactly what the problem is, whether it's restaurants, whether it's church functions, whether it's athletic events for children, whatever it is, the kids are not going to stay home and they're going to be doing activities and doing things. What scares me, and it's feeding the problem, you're going to have families that are going to share. This mom's going to take care of the kids for 3 days, bring in grandpa and grandma to watch the kids, and all of a sudden we're right back in the middle of where it was. You know, our elementary schools, for the most part, are doing a wonderful job to the best of their ability, keeping things clean, whatever it is.
you know, I give Shannon credit, I give Nathan credit, the whole group credit, because we're trying to keep things clean and trying to get it done. And it amazed me when we were at Hazel Point, how excited the staff was and how happy they are that the kids are not a challenge. You know, the kids are wearing the masks and doing their thing. So it would be really hard pressed for me to agree to do 100% online.
And I understand, and
But-
I don't want to argue back and forth about
Right.
who's heard from how many. I mean, we both hear from people, and that's fine.
Yeah, and that's what it is.
I do
And-
want to say that the kids aren't locked in their house studying. Like, I watch it every day. It's engaged, the virtual learning at the elementary level, it's engaging. The kids are laughing, they are learning, they are having fun. Is it a traditional classroom? No. Is it everything we'd hoped it would be? Well, I'm telling you, from, you know, the beginning of this to where it is now, it is fantastic. And those kids they are engaged. They are not locked up in a room, hidden from the world. They are socializing with each other. They are socializing with their teachers. They have special guests come in. It is not a doom and gloom situation. And I don't want anyone to think that virtual is their kid locked in a cave with a computer, because that is not what it is. It is a very good option that would keep more people safe. And I agree with you, Barry. I am incredibly disappointed at the lack of seriousness that people take. And that is where we're at, is people making sad choices in their own, sad choices. Can you tell I have a second grader? Sad choices. People making irresponsible choices and not taking this seriously is what's putting us in this position. And they have to understand that. We're not going to be able to keep our buildings open at full capacity. We may not even be able to stay in hybrid if the community doesn't help out and be responsible outside of the school day hours. We can only do so much in our buildings. But I think it's our responsibility to take care of our teachers who are trying to do this impossible task well. And I know they're doing it to the best of their capability, but I don't know how long they can do it in this format with this stress and this anxiety. I don't know how long I don't know they're going to make it till June 10th. That's where I'm at. We
Okay,
can
let's-
reset it and give them a pause. I think that
Okay.
would be helpful.
Let's move on. Tim, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I guess I would support, I guess I'm more like with what Britt said. I support the hybrid model. PK through 6 would be open to going online as well. But I do support that. If Excelsior is the building that is, you know, if we aren't going to go online, I would support, you know, if Excelsior's staff issues, I'd fully support that. So I don't want to say the same things, but.
No, I know.
But I support it.
Just what you said.
Yeah.
I think that with Excelsior having the problems it is, and knowing that others that are there are trying to cover for those people, like maybe their break, they're going and teaching some other class or doing something, it's very difficult to do anything well, and they feel more and more stressed because they're trying to help. That's the nature of what our staff does. So I would definitely agree with going, you know, asking for virtual there for the 2 weeks. The hybrid, I think, is the best option at this time, because I would really like the K-6 kids to stay there as much as they can, but that might be the best of the options at this point. I don't know that we would get, you know, I go back and forth, but I think virtual is where I'm at right now for K-6. Clark, is there anything you'd like to add at all?
You know, I think everybody here wants to have the kids back in school. They know that that's the best way of learning. But the reality is we have to think of our students in a different format and our staff in our different format. You have Excelsior with, you know, all these teachers out, their subs aren't there. And I can tell you, from a teacher standpoint, these types of things are hard to maintain the emotional structure of a teacher. And yes, we have people that are going out and they're helping other classrooms, but that only goes so far. And then I'm afraid that, for a lack of a better way of putting it, if the strain continues on our staff, we're gonna see some illnesses, and I'm not talking COVID. I think there's gonna be times, like I said, no substitutes, but those teachers are going to need what I would call a mental health day. Just to break the sequence up for maybe 24 hours that they can regroup and recruit and try and get some energy back into the system. As much as I don't care for the virtual, I think it can slow us down, like you were saying, Shannon, to maybe have an opportunity to regroup and get some people healthy, not only staff, but students. And I think that's where, I'm willing to go with that.
Well, with the discussions we've had, do you have some guidance there? Is there anything you'd like to ask more?
Yeah, I do. I think the Excelsior decision is something we absolutely need to do, and I'm not hearing anybody here say anything different than
agree.
that, so I feel good about that, clarity on that decision. The hybrid piece, there's still some different thoughts on that piece of it too. And so here's another idea I want to throw out to you for thoughts as well. This is something that the numbers change so fast. From when I communicated with you on Friday to communicate with you this morning, things have changed drastically. I'm assuming those numbers are going to continue to change, school numbers and county numbers the next couple of days as well. If we want to wait and get a better feel of kind of where that trend is going, is it going to stay there, same route it's going now, is it going to shift? I want to be careful we don't make a decision and then wish we'd have gone virtual or wish we'd have stayed with where we're at. I feel like the hybrid piece is where our next logical step, the timing of it I think is important. Is that now? Do we look at that? Maybe we're better off to think of that after Thanksgiving, where it's now the right time to make that jump. So maybe the timing of that decision, whether we wait till the 23rd board meeting or if we call a special meeting to have a conversation on that as well, or decision, I'm open to that piece as well. I just think at the very least we need to be really talking about this and educating our families that this is an option we are strongly considering too. But I also don't want to just delay the inevitable and then we're right back at the table having the same conversation in a couple of days or a couple of weeks either. So
I guess I'd rather go ahead and make the call now, and then we can always, we've said in the beginning, this is going to be flexible, right? If we come back and we're wrong, either way, we can always make that choice as long as we give people time if we want to move back. But I think where we are now, to do nothing is a mistake. Whether we go hybrid or go all the way to virtual, I think we need to do something. And I thought I heard that, what I heard was hybrid is maybe more people, depending on the person, whether they want to go further or not, and that's what I heard. So I'd rather make especially with the holidays, I would encourage you to make the decision and start moving, and then if we need to adjust, we can.
So I want to say, when you were introducing all our options, and you said K-6 starting next Monday, and you were basically saying maybe through the holidays.
Correct.
As a minimum recommended action. I would agree with that. And then if we're not comfortable applying for virtual for everybody yet, then let's keep watching the numbers over the next week or two and see where we're at. But I don't think staying in the current model is the responsible choice for any of us right now.
And we have a board meeting again on the 23rd. So if we're seeing that it's looking like we need to apply for
Well, I would say,
continual virtual or whatever the case for everything, we can.
I would say given the last 2 weeks, going from 8.6 to 14.5 to 17, and now we're at 21, I would say that if in a week it's still really bad, if we need to call a special session, we do that. I
We
think
can
that
leave that to
we need to be
Shannon's
fluid.
discretion as
Yes,
to
I
what
think
he
we need to be
thinks is
fluid in
right.
that availability.
Okay.
let me look back,
Everybody
because what I
good?
heard Tim say is that the hybrid piece is kind of the most consensus part of that as far as we're going virtual, all virtual or staying where we're at. I'd like to get Barry's thoughts on your level of comfort with that decision if that's where I go. I know it's not your ideal choice right now. Is that something that you think is, at the same time, something you could live with or work with as well, or do you?
Well, you're exactly
I
right.
wanna come back to your
No,
thoughts
it's
on
not
that.
my ideal choice. However, as I sit back and listen and we talk about, I'm always an optimist, and I feel like we're going to hopefully turn a corner here because we've had such an ugly 2 weeks, 10 days, whatever it is when you look at the numbers. I'm optimistic that maybe we're going to turn the corner a little bit. Maybe people are scared a little bit. I don't know. But as a group, I would be more comfortable with that. I am a little bit concerned about dumping it on next Monday already, only from a family standpoint. You know, I look at that more than anything as parents, and I know we're going to put a lot of stress on people, but I guess you still got to go back to the mentality of we're here for all of the kids. And you know, you've got major decisions to make, Shannon. You know, there's a lot of, quote, lives on our hands, on your hands. So, you know, so the discussion actually was pretty good, all in all. But you know, we've got to make some kind of decision. We can't sit back and watch for the next month either, even though I'd sure like to. But I know that's not probably wise.
I know.
Let me summarize what I think I'm hearing then. My thoughts are, you know, I think the board is that also. So I will make a request to the Department of Education tonight to move Excelsior Middle School to virtual learning for 2 weeks, starting on Wednesday the 11th, which would run through November 30th, since there's no school this Friday. It'll take us through November 30th. And then we'll also move pre-K 6 to an AB hybrid beginning Monday, November 16th through December 22nd. And then we'll start communications on that tomorrow with families as well. And then we'll obviously revisit this on November 23rd, board meeting, if not sooner, if things continue to climb and change the way they have been lately.
My only question would be, as you get there, you know, coming right back after, I guess you need a judge the day after Christmas break, you know, or do you wait, kind of like how you did here, a couple of days to kind of see?
Correct.
You know, that, I mean, I don't know what, you know, the holidays are going to bring for.
Yeah, and I think by,
I'm optimistic, unfortunately.
we have a December, I forget the date in December board meeting, that'll be a good time to review that and
Okay.
see, do we want to leave it the 22nd, or do we extend it
Okay.
for a while in January as
think-
well? So-
Well, and we
I
might
think
even,
Thanksgiving is going to be a really good litmus test of what people are going to do over the holidays. I think more people do gather over Christmas and Hanukkah than they do Thanksgiving, but I think it's going to be a good indicator for us of,
that's
do
true.
we see an increase the week after Thanksgiving, or does it stay the same? I think that'll help inform our decision in December, if we're not there already.
Well, and in December, if we decide, like you were just mentioning about making a change the day we come back, maybe we want to extend it. I don't know when second quarter ends. Is that pretty late in January?
It is, because of our
Oh, okay.
delayed start, it is much
Okay,
later
so,
this year than
but
usual.
maybe we could at least go that first full week of January or something. I don't know. These are just things to throw out for the
Yep.
future
Well,
discussion.
I
but-
say, you think about what colleges are doing, like, they went in person through Thanksgiving, and then they're going 2 weeks after the holiday break into January to give like that self-quarantine after you've gathered. So that's a really good kind of barometer for future discussions.
Yep.
Okay. we'll
Okay,
keep
thank
that.
you, appreciate the
All right.
conversation, and these are not easy decisions for any of us to make, so I appreciate your thoughts and
I want to
insight.
Okay,
thank
so-
you for staying, I mean, I know it's your job to stay on top of this, but you've been really informative. Like, I felt really informed coming into tonight's meeting because you've kept us updated the whole time. It hasn't been 2 weeks since we've heard about, so I want to thank you for that, because it makes these very difficult conversations easier when we've got a trending, like we've been informed the whole time.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, there's no way, things are changing so fast, there's no
Yeah.
way to not stay on top of it on an hourly, daily basis, and our team have great systems in place from I don't want to bore you with the details, but our health assistants, nurses, principals put data into a spreadsheet, it shows up, Caitlin puts it together, these incredible graphs. It's a very efficient system for us to really keep a close monitor on it, and it is crazy to watch how fast it changes on
Well, I'd
an
say
hour-to-hour basis.
the notification system is working well too, because even though we're virtual, we're still getting the Wilkins updates. So, I mean, I've been able to watch them come through. I'm seeing what they look like, and so I appreciate the whole system and how well it is working.
That's good to know.
It's just,
Good
it's
to
the
know.
whole thing, like Barry said, is just mind-boggling, and if we could just somehow get all the people that are out there that don't think it's a big problem, thinking that it is a big problem, and doing something about it is good. But I want you to understand, as mind-boggling as it is, and you guys are looking at all the numbers hourly, that if we need a special board meeting, don't hesitate to call us in, because like, you know, everybody has said, our main thing is our students and our staff. And if it means bringing us together, hey, let's just do it, because we're doing it for the right reasons.
Well,
We're doing it for,
Good point.
for the staff, and we're doing it for the students, but we're also following up on the science on what's going on in our district, and I think that serves the students and staff and the patrons of our district the best way.
I
and
think
I would
we'll,
echo what Clark said. Even if it's just for a discussion, this is where we're at. I think that's, you know, if it gets bad and you just want to talk about it and see if we need, I think that's good too. Don't wait until you really need us to vote on something.
okay, I
Agreed.
think, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I
Okay.
agree. If we need a meeting, we will certainly call one because
All right.
it's important work.
Okay, we're going to move on to new business. A motion for the early graduation request.
Moved.
Well, second.
Okay. All those in favor?
I just asked a question. Is this from Compass or?
I believe
high school?
so.
Okay,
But I
great.
Can't
Good news.
100% confirm that.
All right.
Fantastic.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Next, motion for open enrollment.
I move to approve the open enrollment request as presented.
Second.
Okay. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Carries. Next is discussion about the board meeting format. Shannon can maybe just talk about some of the things we thought about, and then we can discuss if we want to do it or not.
Yeah, and this is something that I've shared a little bit of information with you, just some general thoughts. And it's something Sandra and I've talked about a little bit this year. It's such a different year. It's just, everything is different, how we structure things, how we organize things, we coordinate, and board meetings are no exception to that. So as we've worked through the start of this year, doing the dual meeting format like we have traditionally done, there's just some additional challenges to that, from logistics of multiple Zoom meetings and YouTube formats, and trying to find the right amount of time for the work session or content that's the appropriate length and not running real long or too short. And it's just harder in this environment to bring in the groups of people for presentations while still keeping our group sizes smaller. Just those logistical pieces are just not the usual flow to we normally have with everything this year. That's not even kind of the food preparation, those type of things are just harder this time through. So what I'm proposing is, at least for a short-term format, we'd like to try something a little bit different and condense the work sessions and the regular meetings together. Start at either 5 or 5:30 like we normally do, or sometime in that area. And the content we would usually cover in a work session, we would incorporate into information reports or new business, things like that, or unfinished business as a follow-up. I want to be really careful, though, because I think I don't want it to look like we're trying to shorten things or not cover material or keep you guys out of the loop. That's certainly not the intent at all. It's just trying to be efficient with our resources and our time and our structures this year in a unique format. I'm certainly open to your thoughts and ideas, and if this is just a flat-out no, then that's what it is. No problem, we'll continue doing what we're doing. But I also want to be, I'm just a big believer of, I don't want to do things the way we've always done it because we've always done it that way. I'd like to at least have that conversation this unique time period to consider different ways of looking at things. And we may do this for a while and like that's not working at all, we need to switch, and I'm totally open to that too. So, but what I'm basically requesting is, or recommending is, we keep our still twice a month meeting format. We would just condense the two meetings into one, and we would structure them a little bit different as far as the content in the agendas would be kind of a combination of those two things. So our annual meeting is next board meeting, November 30th or 23rd. So that's normally when we would approve our calendar, our schedule of meetings for the year as well. So I thought it'd be a good time to have that decision at that time. So discussion this meeting before we get to that point. So
Okay.
thoughts, questions,
Yeah.
concerns?
Tim?
I
I know
was
that you
waiting to
had-
see if Barry was going to go
I
first.
know, I knew that. you
Come on,
had
Barry.
a couple things to say.
I guess my thoughts are a little apprehensive, but willing to try stuff with the short term on there. I would ask that we start at 5:30 instead of 5. That way if people are getting off work, they can at least get home, and if they want to look at Zoom or YouTube or, they can do that. My concern is I want to make sure we have time to discuss things And we, we have that, I think the discussions before, usually you do something in a work session and we kind of talk about it, and we get there and vote. I want to make sure we continue to do that and we get the same information is, I guess, my major. If we're doing that, I'm willing to try something for a little bit and then.
Well, and one of the things we worried about is, although we would streamline by having one, like YouTube thing as opposed to 2 links and all these different things, we hope to be able to get everything discussed, but if it gets to be, as we go into this, that things just get too long. I mean, if we're going from 5:30 to 8 with no break because we're trying to get everything discussed and all that, then it's fairly obvious that we need to go back to a different system. I think Shannon, had brought that to me, and I said to him, I said, well, we don't need to do things because we've always done them if we can think of another way that might help us in this situation. Again, short term, possibly, when I was looking through our operations manual, it talked about the work session and the other session, so then it made me think, should we really do it? So it's kind of, it's one of those, so I have your apprehension, but I also wonder if trying something new isn't bad. I don't know. Barry, do you have any thoughts? No? Clark, any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Tim. I mean, it's a good opportunity to try something different. And as long as we do get to discuss the important things, I think, and this goes against what Sandra just said a little bit, we've always started at 5. We're used to that. Patrons are used to that. I just soon started at 5 and go the way we go. And if it doesn't turn out, like if we don't feel that we have enough time or something, we have the ability to change that. And I think change is sometimes harder for us older people, but it's change sometimes is good, get a fresh start. So I can see it's worth a try. I'd like to start at 5 versus 5:30, but I'll go with it. It doesn't make any difference to me, really.
Britt, what is your thought?
I think I agree with what's been said, that we shouldn't be afraid to try something new. But I also agree that I don't want to lose out on the updates and the information that we get in the work sessions. I find that very valuable, and there's just a different feel to that session than there is it's not as structured. We get to hear and we get to talk, and I do want to make sure that, I think that our discussions are only going to become more in-depth and detailed over the next few months as we're navigating holidays and winter and COVID and winter sports and all the great things we haven't talked about yet. So I think as long as we're not cutting things off of our to-do list and our topic list, it's always kind of planned out. We're going to do work sessions on this, and as long as we're not cutting things just for the sake of having one meeting instead of 2, I'll try it. I'm not against that. I'm with Tim and Clark. I don't want to do it just to do it. I don't care what time we start. I guess if I had a preference, I'd say stick with 5 just because then we get home earlier. But honestly, I can start at 5:30 just as easily. So,
Well, the 5 o'clock, then we would get maybe home by 7:30, and if you haven't eaten, probably by then you might be starved, so I don't know.
I'm gonna eat before.
Pardon me? We can have snacks along the way or something.
What if we tried it till spring break, something like that? Get us through the winter months when COVID is
And then see
probably
what
going to be
we
at
can-
worst, and then revisit at that time to see if we want to extend it or go beyond that. So that way it's not a
I think it'll
forever thing.
It'll become pretty obvious over a couple meetings if it's not working.
I think so,
Then we'll
too.
just have to say, hey, this is
This is really not working.
working.
Yeah. And I think it's important that we can just say that.
Yeah.
We're trying something new, we're trying to make it better for everyone. If it's not, we'll go back.
Yeah, I don't think we need to put a time date on it. Let's
Yeah, I
just
don't
try
either.
it for a couple meetings and see how it goes.
Okay,
Works for me.
all right. So let's move on. Next thing, the Board Operations Manual, which is something we always have to go through before we start our new year, which is coming up, and hopefully we can discuss some things, and if there's changes needs to be made, we can do that, so that we can come back next time with it ready to go, and we can sign off that we agree with it. That's what we're supposed to do each time. So, who would like to begin? Is there some spot that you want to start, or we can start at the beginning and move on through anything on
I read the whole thing and I didn't find any errors or changes, so I'm just gonna
Okay.
say that. And
Good.
And
nothing
you're
jumped
good?
out at me, and I'm an editor, so I didn't have questions. I
Okay.
didn't, like, so,
How about for you, Barry? Is there some things that you were thinking?
It's good.
Okay. Let's see.
A couple things that I found as I went here that I don't think are edits or changes, but I think nice continuations from our conversation last work session with IASB and just our role as a board and superintendent, just some of those pieces that are really already in here, you know, the chain of command, governance management, policy focus. I think it's just a good reminder for us. But I didn't see anything either that I thought needed to be changed as well. I think it's well-established, well-written too. So just kind of a good reminder and connectivity from our last conversation.
The suggestion was made to me that maybe when we're looking at making policy in that we state in here, I think I'll clear the last, I'll get to the page, sorry guys, like page 11, like the last sentence, it says the board's strategic planning process will include a plan for district public relations and all that. But I was wondering if maybe at some place we shouldn't mention that when we're making policy that we're thinking about the strategic plan of the district helping to guide where we need to go with policy, and maybe not, but I'm just thinking.
I had a question mark there, I guess I might.
Okay, so brains are working the same sort of. Let me see here. I'm trying to think where we might be able to put that in.
I think we're making strides towards this sentence in recent conversations about, you know, communications and things. I think we're working towards that planning process.
Yeah, so I was trying to figure out where we could insert that or, you know, that kind of thing. It was just something that kind of stuck out to me because in our last discussion, we mentioned in our governance versus management, we talked about that, you know, tying the strategic plan in, and I don't know if we need to be more specific to put that down somewhere or not. Under policy, something that I remember was stated that policy making and review should be done through the lens of the district's strategic plan. That's something that we had said last time. And so if we do that, then maybe that's a statement we can either put on, we're back here where it says Appendix B under Policy Committee, and add it on there somewhere, maybe. I don't know.
I guess my question mark was more, are we doing this? Not so much it should be somewhere else.
Okay.
I think it fits under relationships and communications because it's about communications. My question was,
Are we doing it?
are we doing that as part of our strategic planning process? Because, I mean, I've been in a couple meetings in my first year about strategic planning, but we've never really talked about the district public relations and marketing that is being implemented. So
Yeah.
I think that my question was more, we need to make sure that we're doing this if it's in our manual.
Make sure it's actually happening.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, well, that might be the way then, as long as we're including that strategic plan in some way when we're thinking about things as a board, I think we're good. Kara had left some comments, and I'll make sure that Shannon has them and we can, you know, go through some of those. Hers included things like just making sure that, one I thought was great under external relations and communications, external wise. If there's something like with all the COVID stuff that's going on, if there's a communication that goes out to all the staff about a change of some kind or something, if it could be like for your information and send it to the board, just so if it's a major kind of change or new something, then we might be able to have that communication. Or have a place, she suggested a place where we could go, and if you want to access that.
I liked that idea, the repository.
I like that. I don't want to get all the text.
Okay, well,
I
and
don't want
and
that, so.
maybe there's a place
No more emails.
like that,
Yeah.
where we could go and we could access it and read it if we wanted to, especially if someone comes up to you and starts talking to you about something, you say, I have no clue, you know, and, I mean, I just do that if I don't know, but it might be a way that we could
Well-
have it somewhere.
Just, and I'm fine if you want to do that. The part of it is by saying, I don't know, because I haven't, because it's typically not governance, it's typically management, and so.
Well, it's more
It's
just
always a good thing.
information is all.
Yeah,
she's
I get that,
I
I get
think-
that, and I'm not opposed to it, but it's not all bad to not know everything.
Well, in a normal year,
That's
I
true.
think
That's
that's, I don't think they would expect us to know everything in a normal year. I think it's specifically
Okay.
COVID-related.
You're right.
They wanted,
Peace, I get that, I get that.
but.
Okay. Is there anyone with any other questions, concerns? If not, I think we can move on and figure that we can bring that forth, and I'll ask Kara to make sure if she has any questions, that kind of thing. So we go on to consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Clark and Britt. Okay, discussion. Is there anything here that wanted to bring up? Any questions?
I'd just like to thank, and I'm going to butcher this and I apologize, Shin Cha-Yi for her retirement and all the time that she has put into our district for our students and staff.
Anything else anybody has to say? Okay, so with that, I would say, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? So that carries. All right, so we're to communications. And tomorrow, there's the IASB pre-conference workshop. I think, Britt, you're
I'm going.
participating, and I think Kara.
Equity.
I think Kara and Rachel are also.
Okay.
And then next week, I'll be doing the delegated assembly thing. Anything else here for the good of the order, the calendar?
I have, not
Yes.
on the calendar, but I just wanted to recognize our principal from Wilkins, Amanda Potter, was recognized
Yeah.
as the KCRG A+ for Education winner last week.
Awesome.
So there was a nice video on the Wilkins Elementary Facebook page, if you hadn't seen it yet. But I thought that was, KCRG has a pretty big area, and so our principal won that last week. That's pretty awesome.
Yes, that is
So
awesome.
congratulations to Mrs. Potter.
Absolutely, absolutely. Is there anything else? Okay, not seeing anything. I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn
Okay,
at
Britt?
8:23.
26.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you all.